we would like to go over some of the ground rules. Candidates should focus on ideas, not personalities. Candidates should be courteous and should not make inflammatory statements. Disrespectful or attacking speech will not be tolerated. Profane language is prohibited. Candidates may not display a prop of any kind. Candidates must strictly adhere to the time limits of each section of the debate. The moderator reserves the right to cut off a candidate who exceeds the time limit or to redirect a candidate if their remarks are not pertinent to the elected office. Do you both agree to these rules?
Yes.
I do.
With that, we will begin with opening remarks. Representative Rich, you have 2 minutes to make your opening remarks.
Thank you, and thank you to Club 20 for hosting this debate. I'm Janice Rich, and I am currently your state representative for House District 55. I grew up in a small town in Texas, but Grand Junction has been my home for more than 47 years. A little bit about me. I have owned 2 businesses. I worked as a certified legal secretary for 20 years. I served as a court clerk for the U.S. Magistrate Judge for 6 years. I was elected Mesa County Clerk and Recorder and served 2 terms. I was then elected Mesa County Treasurer and served 2 terms. I was honored to be elected in 2018 to the Colorado State Legislature. My voting record during my first 2 years in the legislature will prove that my past experience, both in the private sector and working in local government, prepared me to successfully represent the citizens of Grand Junction, of Mesa County, and our Colorado General Assembly. I completed my first year in the state legislature as a prime sponsor of 7 bills, all of them passing and signed by the governor. In my second year, I passed another 7 bills, 4 of them unanimously in the House and the Senate, and 3 with strong bipartisan support. Again, all 7 were signed by the governor. I also signed on to sponsor 31 more successful bills. That success comes from believing we do our best work when we work together, and working together builds a stronger Colorado. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Now, candidate Beilfuss will have 2 minutes to make opening remarks. Please proceed.
Hi, everybody. Scott Beilfuss here. I'm running for House District 55 as a Democratic candidate. Just want to thank CMU for hosting this. I am a part-time student at CMU, I'm proud to say, and just went through my COVID testing. I'm ready to go to class, and it'll be exciting. But I must say, CMU has done an outstanding job with getting ready for this COVID and is definitely a leader in the state on student safety and staff safety. So I appreciate their putting this on. And Club 20, thank you very much. Running for House District 55 as a Democrat, as I said, working on, I should say I've been here 35 years in Grand Junction, and during that time I've mostly been a traveling sales rep and a small business owner. So I worked with the entire Western Slope, which really gave me a good feel for what I'm getting into with this, because obviously you have to work with other districts around you. I worked with schools. As in working with those schools, I sat down with principals and students and parents and talked to them about their dreams and goals and things that they wanted for their families and kids, and I think that really helped me get prepared for this. My platform is pretty simple. It's healthcare affordability, it's support for schools, it's better jobs over here, and it's new leadership. We've got a mono system for politics here, and it's time to get some new ideas out. I am an organizer in the community. I talk to people on the streets all the time, and one thing they say is both sides need to work together to get things done. We have big problems coming at us, and there's no reason that both parties shouldn't be represented in Denver for our area. And Democrats are the party of the workers, and it's time that their voices get heard. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate. Next, we will have the question and answer portion of our debate. Questions have been submitted by Club 20 members from across our 22-county region. Each candidate will have 1 minute to respond to each question. The candidate who goes first on each question will also have an opportunity to offer a 30-second rebuttal to the other candidate's response for that particular question. The candidate that went first in opening remarks will offer the first response to the first question. Representative Rich, how would you reprioritize the state budget without additional revenue?
Thank you for the question. I've always been an advocate of restructuring the state budget. It's important that we have transparency and accountability. And in my first year, we encouraged changing the way the budget is structured, maybe to even going to performance-based budgeting or zero-based budgeting. And I know that that's a heavy lift, but we suggested maybe alternating various departments so that we had some real accountability of where that money was being spent. I think it's important that we have that opportunity to look at everything that is being spent instead of a department going in and saying, well, this is what we had last year and this is how much more we need. So I would like to see some more transparency and accountability. Unfortunately, the other side of the aisle voted that down.
Thank you, Representative. Candidate Beilfuss, how would you reprioritize the state budget without additional revenue?
As most of you know, the budget is mostly made up of education and healthcare, and so it's very hard to work with those two gigantic blocks. They make up about 80% of the state budget. After that, it's transportation, jails, and then everything else in between. So, I think one thing we get stuck on, we live in a little bubble over here, and I think as a state sometimes we're guilty of that too. And to look outside of the state as far as the way other people do things, other countries do things. We're not the only ones that have to live with a balanced budget, and there's different ways to work with that. We are the only ones that have to work with Tabor. And, that's the biggest problem, I think, that we're working with right now is how to rearrange revenues or raise revenues. I mean, the state's growing. Why should we cut the budget? We should be providing services that the people want and needs, especially essential services.
Thank you. Representative Rich, you will now have 30 seconds to respond.
Thank you. And I believe that we can find the revenue if we're just transparent. I don't think that we should try to look like other states. We've been very fortunate that we're required to have a balanced budget. What would we do if we looked like California right now? So I think it's very important that we try to keep our balanced budget, but that we try to be responsible with the taxpayer money. That just takes some political will and discipline. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question goes to candidate Beilfuss. Do you agree with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service's proposed delisting of the wolf? And what is your position on the current ballot measure to reintroduce them to our region?
The wolf question. I didn't think that would come up, but thank you. Gary Donovan, I think it was, introduced a bill that I think would have been a lot more palatable to the voters as far as, and then it got pushed aside with the COVID thing. And her bill was, to study it, take some time, let the natural process take shape, because we already do have wolves in the state. And so I think that would have been the best solution. We're going to vote on it. It looks like it's going to pass, and we'll have to live with it. There is remuneration to the cattle farmers for livestock loss to wolves. And how to fund that, we don't know. So I'm not sure that's the best way to work with it, but given what was not able to get through the legislature, we're going to have to live with it. So I would much rather have gone the Kerry Donovan route and, done some studies and worked with this situation.
Thank you, candidate. Representative Rich, do you agree with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service's proposed delisting of the wolf? And what is your position on the current ballot measure to reintroduce them to our region?
Well, I don't support the Proposition 114, but the entire state is going to decide the introduction of the wolves just on the western slope. And $6 million in new spending for unnecessary wolf initiative during COVID-19 is not good for our budget shortfall. Colorado Parks and Wildlife already confirms that an active wolf pack is in the northwest Colorado. One of the things that we learned just the other day when we were doing our business base camp is that we already have wolves here, and they're going to truck in other wolves, and they're not going to play well together, and that's going to be a problem. And Colorado is the home of our North America's most beloved elk and deer herds, and a small but cherished population of moose. So I wish and I hope that the Eastern Slope doesn't vote us to have wolves.
Thank you. Candidate Beilfuss, you now have 30 seconds to respond.
I've been in several conversations about the wolf thing with ranchers. Janie Van Winkle, represents all the cattlemen here, and she's very, very concerned about the situation. I would point that other states have been able to work this out. I think Colorado will be able to as well. I am concerned for the ranchers, that they lose livestock. However, one of the main reasons for keeping the wolves out was that hunters had more wild game to shoot. So, I think there's some compromise in there somewhere.
Thank you. Representative Rich, healthcare costs and expensive insurance premiums have plagued Western Colorado for years. What should Colorado do to ensure the efficient and effective delivery of health care in Colorado? And do you support a single payer system?
Thank you for the question. Last year, I got to sit in on the healthcare committee when they were proposing the public option. And it was interesting that they called it a public option because it was actually a mandate. If you did not participate, you were not going to be able to practice in Colorado. So I always think that the private sector can outperform any state government. And so it would be hard for me to support a public option or whatever they want to call it. But when I listened to them, they didn't have a lot of support from the healthcare professionals. They didn't even have support from regular people when they introduced it to the committee. So I hope that we can come to some sort of a compromise, and if we have a public-private compromise, that would be great.
Thank you, Representative. Now to you, Candidate Beilfuss. Healthcare costs and expensive insurance premiums have plagued Western Colorado for years. What should Colorado do to ensure the efficient and effective delivery of health care in Colorado? And do you support a single-payer system?
My mantra is everybody should be insured everywhere. Why do we get caught in these little networks and all that sort of thing? So when we work on the healthcare problems over here, pretty much the people at the table are the insurers and the medical providers. Both of them, we're asking them to cut their revenues to bring down the premiums here. Obviously, they're not going to go along with that. We need some people that can come up with solutions and work towards a common goal of insuring everyone. We still have 10% of the people in Mesa County with no insurance at all. 33% of the county has Medicaid. That's not a healthy insurance system. It puts a lot of pressure on private pay people to bring up the revenues for the local Medicare or medical providers. So we definitely need some different people at the table to work on this. And, as a representative, I would try to put that together because I've seen the problems that it's caused. So many people say they're going to work on the problem and they don't.
Thank you, Candidate. Representative Rich, you will now have 30 seconds to respond.
Well, I don't pretend to have that silver bullet to solve our healthcare issues, but a good starting place is not to only invite our healthcare professionals, but to also invite the average working person to the table. That has never really happened before. And for rural areas, it is vital that we keep our primary care physicians and our rural hospitals in place, and our healthcare decisions must not be turned over to the state. I am proud to be endorsed by the Colorado Medical Society because they know I am a friend of not only the physicians, but the patients as well.
Thank you. Our next question goes to Candidate Beilfuss. In your opinion, what are the top 3 issues impacting House District 55, and how would you address these issues if elected?
Well, with the funding crisis, we definitely have shortfalls in a lot of different areas. First of all, we got to get people back to work, and I think our district actually is doing pretty well with that. We're in one of the lower areas of unemployment in the state, so we're very fortunate of that. But most of that is tied to housing, and of course that will flatten out. So we got to get ready to train people for new jobs. There's a lot of people in Mesa County that have lost their job forever. A lot of retail and service industries that have gone under and closed for, a long time, or again, forever. So I think training is going to be a huge issue. The jobs thing will be a huge issue. And the blow to our schools is a gigantic issue. The school districts had to cut back on very important positions in those schools. There's a lot of kids in the school district that are not getting served because of lack of staff. And so to get the funding back up for those schools is incredibly important, and to help get college affordable again for a lot of students.
Thank you, candidate. Representative Rich, now to you. In your opinion, what are the 3 top issues impacting House District 55, and how would you address these issues if elected?
Well, thank you. My vision has been consistent with my voting record. I promote economic opportunities, and I support bills that work to maximize our way of life. I also am a strong supporter of protecting Western Slope water. A secure and sustainable water future for Colorado is essential. It is vital for our farmers, our ranchers, our recreation, our wildlife, actually even water quality, especially that. I also support preserving efficient and common sense energy development, and that would include all of the above. I support renewables, and I hope that we continue to bring those diverse businesses into our area, because all jobs are welcome. I think we should prioritize transportation as well, and I know that's number 4, but I think we should be prioritizing transportation as well.
Thank you. Candidate Beilfuss, you will now have 30 seconds to respond.
As long as I can remember, there's never been a representative or a senator that went to Denver to get jobs for Western Colorado. I'm a salesman, I'm aggressive, I am tied to the business community as well, and know how to, some of the impediments to small businesses here. I would go to Denver and knock down some of those impediments, make people work together to create an easier licensing path for small businesses. And I'm used to working with the manufacturing sector from where I come from. I grew up in a place that had more jobs than people, so I know how to do that.
Thank you both for your responses. The next phase of our debate is the cross-examination portion. Each candidate will be given 3 minutes to ask questions of their opponent on matters pertinent to the race or office. Candidates, please keep your questions and remarks pertinent to the race. As the moderator, I reserve the right to intervene if questions get off course or if there are any personal attacks of any nature. The voters want to hear how you plan to serve them as their elected official, not how well you can attack your opponent. Candidate Beilfuss will begin the cross-examination. You have 3 minutes, and you may begin.
Thank you. A lot of you don't know that I've been a local organizer for healthcare issues for a long time, so that's my passion. People can't have a decent life or be healthy to go to work unless they have insurance and access to healthcare. Representative Rich, we've talked before, you've voted against some key issues on healthcare, and so my question to you is, where really are you on healthcare? You voted against the Reinsurance Act, of course, this year. That would have cost me personally $3,000 of increased premiums. You voted against the Healthy Families issue, which women very often are the ones that have to go and help their families and their parents. You voted against importing prescription drugs from Canada, and against the insulin bill, which I was really shocked at, because if anybody needs help, it's people on diabetes. So could you talk about your health care, please?
Thank you for the question. If you don't know this, I am a cancer survivor. So it's kind of funny that you would say that I don't care about health care. But when you are looking at bills that are coming before you, there's a lot of things that the budget has to pay for. And every one of those bills that you just laid out has a very high fiscal note to them. Senate Bill 2215 has a fiscal note of $182.4 million from the general fund just this year. It goes up to $295.5 million next year and $314.8 million the year after that. I supported reinsurance in 2019, and the savings that you're seeing right now, that has to do with the bill that I passed because open enrollment hasn't occurred yet, and you won't know about those savings until after the first of the year. The reason I didn't support it this year is that they tacked on fees, they created an enterprise, the language is ambiguous, and it's open-ended, and it leaves critical details to be decided by an unelected board and an unelected insurance commissioner. This could have devastating effects not only to patients, but to the state budget and to our economy.
So can we clarify, I've only got a few seconds here. So could we clarify, I mean, the state's role is healthcare. 40% of our budget is healthcare. So if not spending that money on people, then what? I mean, I'm not for saving that money so a private hospital can make more money or a specialist can drive a new Maserati. I want people to have coverage.
I don't disagree with you, but I think that we should be a partnership in that. I don't think it should be state-run. And if you look in the Constitution, it says there's nothing in there that says that's a state's responsibility. But, okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Representative Rich, you now have 3 minutes for cross-examination.
Okay. Most of my questions from my opponents center around the state budget and spending. So since we're talking about health care, on your website, you support putting laid-off workers on Medicaid until we go back to work. What do you plan to cut in the current budget to add additional people going on Medicaid in the state of Colorado?
Well, some of the money was coming from the federal block grant with the 1335 waivers. There was some money for but it's there right now, so why not use it? I mean, we should definitely be going after those people. A lot of people don't realize that Medicaid thing is not as easy as it looks. You only get on it if you're at a very low income, and with the unemployment and the $600, now $300 going up, you're bumped off of Medicaid. So I'm advocating for some of those people that are bumped, that cannot get on the exchange, to be accepted into Medicaid for a set time so that they get some help.
Thank you. How will you defend the fiscal note that will be attached to a bill such as you're proposing that could be in the millions, if not billions, for the state budget?
Well, again, that's part of the 1335 deal. So for the time being, that is going to be, covered from CARES and the HELP Act and those things. But, when we get around, I'm anticipating that our revenue is going to go up and we're going to be able to cover some of these things. I'm also anticipating that we're going to be getting people back to work. So the number hopefully is not going to be that high. But I will also say that the system is not right for everybody out there. There's a lot of people that don't have health care that should have access to it.
As a legislator, we are responsible for critical thinking through impacts as lofty as these ideas. What stakeholders have you reached out to that are willing to support this proposal and the amount of money this is going to cost the state?
Actually, everybody I've talked to, says people should have access to health care, that we can't get back on our feet if we don't have people insured. We want a healthy workforce. And I don't think there's any, arguing with that. Now, I do run into people that are comfortable with people falling through the cracks because that's God's will. And that's not the way I look at healthcare. I think that we have a responsibility, and that's part of our, that's part of our platform as Democrats. We want everybody insured, and we will find a way to do it.
So, I applaud that. I think that's admirable. But what professionals in the healthcare profession are supporting this idea?
Well, the one I work with the most is Dr. Promenko. He's head of primary care partners, and he's a very big advocate for everybody being covered, as you know. So, he's my go-to guy. I'm also part of the Colorado consumer health initiative. They very much push this.
To close out our debate, each candidate will have 2 minutes to present closing remarks. Candidates, this is your final opportunity to tell us why we should elect you to represent House District 55. Candidate Beilfuss, please begin your closing remarks.
Well, I think there's very clear differences between myself and Representative Rich. Mesa County is a very much divided economic county. It's divided by zip code. You know, part of the county is very, very poor, low income. And those are the people I talk to a lot. They need help. They're working 2 and 3 jobs to make things work for their families. They're missing out on time with their kids. They're not being able to have time to help their parents. And, you know, we need to get some wages up, some better jobs here, and we need to have them covered. Also, you know, as far as a job promoter, having everybody covered automatically with health care, you know, I know it's not an easy lift, but I think there is a path to that. And it would open the doors tremendously. I talk to all kinds of people that are afraid to start their small business because they have to stay on their wife's health care, their husband's health care, or go without. So I think it's just absolutely critical that we get everybody insured in this state so that they can live out their dreams and take care of their families. And likewise, you know, the Healthy Family Initiative to help out. You know, we can do this, but we have to work together on it, and we have to send people to Denver that want to work on it, and that would be me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Representative Rich, please give us your closing remarks.
I want to thank Club 20 again for hosting this debate. It has been the honor of my life to be your state representative from House District 55, and I hope to continue to represent you in the Colorado General Assembly. I don't take this position for granted because I know the citizens of Grand Junction, of Mesa County, put their trust in me to go to Denver to do this job to protect what's important, this place we call home. There are some things I look at and ask myself and others when reviewing proposed legislation. Does this help or hurt Grand Junction? How will it affect Mesa County? What will be the impact on the Western Slope? Friends, I am a fiscal conservative, and to the people of Grand Junction and the Western Slope, I will not make false promises with empty pockets. I am not that candidate. As your state legislator, it has been my responsibility to look out for you, listen to you, and make your voice heard. I look forward to doing that in the next 2 years. I'm Janice Rich. I'm running for re-election for House District 55, and I hope to earn your support and your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Rich and candidate Beilfuss, for participating in today's House District 55 debate. Your participation has helped the voters better understand how each of you plan to represent their interests if elected to office. The House District 58 debate will begin in just about 15 minutes, so please stay with us. Thank you.